轻松学汉语 Chinese made easy for kids 第9课我会说汉语我们来看这些国家 Now let's have a look at these countries. 中国、美国、英国、澳大利亚、日本、韩国、法国。我们再来一遍。Now let's do it again. 中国、美国、英国、澳大利亚、日本、韩国、法国。你还记得这些国家吗？ Can you still remember these countries? 这是什么国家？ What is this country? 这是中国。这是什么国家？ What is this country? 这是美国。这是什么国家？ What is this country? 这是英国。What is this country? 这是什么国家？这是澳大利亚。这是什么国家？这是日本。这是什么国家？这是韩国。这是什么国家？这是法国。我们来看世界地图，我们来找找这些国家在哪里。Now let's have a look at this map of the world and see whether you can identify where these countries are. 这是中国，这是美国，这是英国，这是澳大利亚，这是日本，这是韩国，这是法国。你还记得这些国家吗？ Now try to identify the locations of these countries by yourselves on this map of the world. 现在我们来看更多的词语。Now let's have a look at more words. For each country, you will see the nationality related to that country and the language related to that country. China, 中国 and the nationality there is 中国人 and the language they speak is 中文 or 汉语。澳大利亚 The nationality of this country is 澳大利亚人 and they speak 英语。美国美国人 They speak 他说英语。英国人英国人 and they speak 他们说英语。法国人他们说法语。韩国人他们说韩语。日本人他们说日语。 Now let's have a look at this table without the help of English words and pinyin and see whether you can identify the most of them. 中国，中国人，汉语。英国，英国人，英语。美国，美国人，英语。法国，法国人，法语。韩国，韩国人，韩语。日本，日本人，日语。澳大利亚，澳大利亚人，英语。Now, you must have seen there are two extra items at the bottom of this table. The first one is 新加坡, Singapore, and the nationality there is called 新加坡人, Singaporean. And the language they speak is 英语. And the last one is 台湾, 台湾人, and the language that they speak is 汉语. Now, we will try to put these information pieces into the following two sentence patterns to introduce yourself about your nationality and the language you speak. For example, you can say, 我是中国人, I am a Chinese. 我会说汉语, I can speak Chinese language. Another example could be, 我是澳大利亚人, 我会说英语, I am an Australian and I can speak English. Now try these yourselves. Now let's have a look at this speaking practice. And first of all, let's have a look at this example. Have a look at this picture. Here we can see a little boy dressing in Chinese traditional clothes. And he is flying a kite on the Great Wall. And apparently he lives in China. And if so, his nationality is 中国人. And his language is 汉语. If we put these elements in the sentences about him, these could be, 他是中国人, 他说汉语, he is a Chinese people, and he speaks Chinese language. 他是中国人, 他说汉语. Now it's your turn to convert these elements, these words about all of these next 5 kids into the sentences of nationality and language. Now in picture 1, we can see a little girl playing in a place looking like a Korean country. If so, her nationality is 韩国人. And the language that she can speak is 韩语. Can you construct 2 sentences talking about her nationality and her language? Right. 他是韩国人，他说韩语。Now let's have a look at the second picture, and we can see there's a boy walking in the city of New York. And apparently he is in the USA. And if so, his nationality is 美国人, and the language he can speak is 英语. Now construct 2 sentences talking about his nationality and his language. Right. 他是美国人，他说英语。Now let's move on to picture 3. And here we can see a girl sitting within the garden with a background of London. And it looks like she lives in the UK. And if so, her nationality may be 英国人, and the language that she can speak is 英语. Now you need to construct 2 sentences about her nationality and her language. Right. 他是英国人。他说英语。Now let's move on to picture 4. And we can see there's a kid living in Paris. And if so, his nationality may be 法国人, and his language is 法语. Now construct 2 sentences talking about his nationality and his language. Right. 他是法国人。他说法语。Now let's move on to the last picture. And we can see there's a girl living in Japan. And apparently her nationality is 日本人. And her language is 日语. Now construct 2 sentences talking about her nationality and her language. Right. 他是日本人。他说日语。Okay, we will need to talk about people's nationalities and the languages that they can speak, about more types of people. Remember, we learned family members before, right? Now, let's review them through this family tree. So we can start with the bottom one, and that is 我, which is yourself. 我, so when you talk about yourself, you say 我. Upward, your parents are 爸爸, mama. Now, in terms of talking about their nationality and their language, you can say 我爸爸是 whatever country person, and 我爸爸说 whatever language. And you can do the same for your mom's nationality and her language. For example, 我妈妈是中国人，她说汉语。And if we move even forward, we can see on dad's side, there are grandparents, right? 爷爷, grandpa on dad's side, and grandma, 奶奶 on dad's side. 爷爷 and 奶奶, and you can do the same to talk about their nationalities and languages. Now, if we move on to mama's side, and you can see mama's parents are 外公, which is mom's dad, and that is your grandpa on mom's side. 外婆, that is your mom's mom, which is also grandma on mom's side. Likewise, you can also talk about their nationalities and their languages. Now let's have a look at these questions before we do the survey amongst ourselves. Now these questions are all about what the languages your family members can speak. Let's read each one of these questions. Number 1. 你爷爷会说什么语言？你爷爷会说什么语言？ Can you answer this question? You could say, 我爷爷会说, and then you fill in a language that you believe your grandpa can speak. The second one, 你奶奶会说什么语言？你奶奶会说什么语言？ And to answer this question, you can say, 我奶奶会说。我奶奶会说。The third question, 你爸爸会说什么语言？你爸爸会说什么语言？ And to answer this, you can say, 我爸爸会说。我爸爸会说。And the fourth one, 你妈妈会说什么语言？你妈妈会说什么语言？ And you can answer, 我妈妈会说。我妈妈会说。The fifth one is about you yourself. 你会说什么语言？你会说什么语言？ And you can answer, 我会说。我会说。And the sixth question is a bit special. It is not about the ability of being able to speak whatever language. It is asking what language you want to learn. I hope you can still remember the word of 想, which means want to. Okay, you still have got the desire, you still have got the thought of learning a new language. So it could be a language that you haven't yet been able to speak. So the question is, 你想学什么语言？你想学什么语言？ So to answer this question, you can think about the language that you desire to learn. And you can say, 我想学。我想学。Now, you need to practice reading out these questions correctly with the right pronunciations. And then go ahead to find some peer learners to do the survey. Next, let's learn the new words about the text that we're going to learn today. The first one is 金. 金. So 金 originally means gold, but here in our today's context, it is a surname. 小北is a kid's name. It is a given name. So if a person is called 金小北, and then the person can call him or herself as 我叫金小北. 我叫金小北. Now, next phrase is 韩国. 韩国. We already talked about this country in our introduction part. 韩国 means Republic of Korea. 韩国人 is the nationality of the people living in 韩国. 韩语, that is the language that is spoken by the Korean people. Now, in a sentence about one of your family members, you could say, 我妈妈是韩国人. 我妈妈是韩国人. And next word is 会, which means can, and it talks about your ability. 说 is speak. Putting together, you can say 我会说韩语 or 我会说汉语. Now, if you can speak both languages, you can use a 和 in the middle, meaning and. So the full sentence could be 我会说汉语 and 韩语. Now, when you talk about the Chinese language and then the Korean language, be careful about the tones of these two phrases. For the Chinese language, you need to use the falling tone. It sounds like 汉语. So visually, you could imagine that you are sliding down from the top of a slide. It's like, whee! So practice that and say 汉语, and that is for Chinese language. For 韩语, we use the second rising tone. And visually in your mind, you can imagine that you are climbing up the slide or climbing up a ladder. So it should start from the lower position and gradually go up to a higher position. And it sounds like 韩语, 韩语. And that is for Korean language. Now, can you identify these two languages from my reading? And see which one is which? 汉语, 韩语. And another pair is 韩语, 汉语. Now, have you mastered the difference? Next one, we've got 法国 and also 现, which means present. And normally we will combine it with another word as 在, 现在 meaning now. When we put these phrases in one sentence, we could say 我们一家人现在住在法国. We could cut the whole sentence into smaller chunks. 我们 we 一家人 whole family 现在 right now 住在 live in 法国 is the country of France. 我们一家人现在住在法国. We whole family right now live in France. 我们一家人现在住在法国. Now you already know that the people in France speak the language of French. And next word we're going to learn is 想, meaning want or would like or desire. And you could put it into a sentence to express you want to learn whatever language or whoever that wants to learn whatever language. So here in the example sentence, you could say 我爸爸妈妈都想学法语. My dad, mom, both want to learn French. 我爸爸妈妈都想学法语. And next one is a question word. 哪国人? What nationality? It can be used in a question whenever you want to ask about another person's nationality. So you can construct a question as 你是哪国人? 你是哪国人? To answer this question, you can simply replace 你 with 我 and 哪国 with the country. For example, 你是哪国人? And to answer this question, you can say 我是澳大利亚人 or 我是中国人. Next word is 言 speech, and normally we combine it with 语 to make a whole phrase for language, and that is 语言. Now this is a general word covering all types of languages, and we normally use it in the question asking about the language the another person can speak. For example, you can ask 你会说什么语言? 你会说什么语言? Now to answer this question, you can replace 你 with 我 and then 什么语言 with a specific language. For example, 你会说什么语言? And you can answer 我会说汉语 or 我会说英语. Now let's move on to the text of today's lesson. 我叫金小北，我爸爸是中国人，妈妈是韩国人。 我会说汉语和韩语。我们一家人现在住在法国。我爸爸妈妈都想学法语。我也想学法语。你是哪国人？你会说什么语言？ Now, try to read this text by yourselves. Now let's have a look at this chant. 你爸爸是哪国人？他是哪国人？我爸爸是中国人，他是中国人。Have you identified there is a certain pattern of rhythms? Try to clap and say the chant again. 你爸爸是哪国人？他是哪国人？我爸爸是中国人，他是中国人。We talked about 想 as a verb to describe a desire to do something. It can be followed with any verbs or action words. Now let's have a look at this example. 她想学日语. So she wants to learn Japanese. Now be careful, the 学 here is a verb. 她想学日语. Now what about all the following pictures? Have a look at the second one. There is an apple, and it is combined with the action word of 吃, which is eat. Can you construct a sentence talking about what she wants to do? Yes, you can say 她想吃苹果。她想吃苹果。And what about picture number 3? This Eiffel Tower is a representative of France. And there's the action word of 去, meaning go. What does she want to do? 她想去法国。她想去法国。In the next picture, we can see a rabbit as a pet. And then it is together with an action word of keeping a pet. So normally keep means looks after a pet. And what does she want to do here? So you can say 她想养兔子。她想养兔子。In picture 5, we can see a zoo. And this is a 动物园. Now, for those who have already been to this zoo, you may know this zoo is in Shanghai. Now, you could tell in either way for the place. You can say either 动物园 or Shanghai. And there is an action word called 去, which is go. What does she want to do here? 她想去动物园。她想去动物园。Or, if you would like to call it a city, you could say 她想去上海。她想去上海。And in picture 6, we can see a Pepsi Coke, and that is 可乐. And it is together with an action word of 喝. So what does she want to do? 她想喝可乐。她想 喝可乐。And in picture 7, there is a hamburger, which is 汉堡包。汉堡包。What to do with the 汉堡包? We eat, right? What does she want to do? 她想吃汉堡包。她想吃汉堡包。In picture 8, there is a dress, which is 裙子 in Chinese. And the action word for the 裙子 is 穿 to put on, to wear. And what does she want to do? 她想穿裙子。她想穿裙子。Now try them all over by yourselves. Let's take a small quiz to rearrange the words to make sentences. Sentence number 1. 会我汉语说。How can you reconstruct this sentence to make a correct one? Yes, the correct sentence is 我会说汉语。我会说汉语。And I hope you can also know the meaning in English. I can speak Chinese. Now let's move on to sentence number 2. 法语想我学。Can you rearrange this sentence? Yes, it is 我想学法语。我想学法语。I want to learn French. Sentence number 3. 中国人都我们是。How to rearrange this sentence then? And that is 我们都是中国人。我们都是中国人。We are all Chinese. We are all Chinese. Now, if originally you cannot identify the place for 都, you can leave it for now and construct the remaining 3 phrases to make them correct. For example, 我们是中国人. And then you can decide where to place the word of 都, meaning all. Now, sentence number 4. 上今年3年级我 Rearrange this sentence. So you can say 今年我上3年级。今年我上3年级。An alternative way could be 我今年上3年级。我今年上3年级。I am in grade 3 this year. You may also wonder where to place the phrase of 今年. Now look, this is a phrase about time. Here means this year. And the phrase of time is normally quite flexible in the places in a Chinese sentence. You could place it right at the beginning of a sentence, or sometimes you can put it after the subject of the sentence. Now sentence number 5. 是我妹妹小学生. Can you rearrange this sentence? Right. 我妹妹是小学生. 我妹妹是小学生. My younger sister is primary school student. Now the last sentence. 有我们班24个学生. Can you rearrange the last sentence? Yes, you can say 我们班有24个学生。我们班有24个学生。Our class has 24 students. Now, let's ask our peer learner the following questions. And make sure, first of all, you can read these questions correctly. Number 1. 一，你今年上几年级？你在几班？你今年上几年级？你在几班？ Which grade are you in this year? And which class are you in? Number 2. 二，你是哪国人？你是哪国人？ What nationality are you? Number 3. 三，你班有多少学生？多少男生？多少女生？你班有多少学生？多少男生？多少女生？ How many students are there in your class? How many boy students? How many girl students? Number 4. 四，在学校你学什么？在学校你学什么？ In school, what do you learn? Number 5. 五，你会说什么语言？你会说什么语言？ What language can you speak? Number 6. 六，你想学什么语言？你想学什么语言？ What language do you want to learn? Now let's have a look at this example of speaking practice. 他是我的好朋友，叫高小红。他是小学生，今年上2年级。他爸爸是中国人，妈妈是法国人。他会说汉语、法语和英语。Now it's your turn. Try to introduce your best friend. Now let's learn the characters. To be a little bit different from the workbook examples, I will also introduce the structures of the characters so we can learn the Chinese characters in a more efficient way. So in today's Chinese characters list, we will see there are basically 3 main structures that are involved. Now let's have a look at the middle one and the right-hand side one first. The middle structure has to do with left side and right-hand side. Now, when you encounter this kind of structure characters, we normally start with the writing on the left-hand side, followed by the part on the right-hand side. So the writing sequence is left the first and the right the second. And this type of structure can be further divided into this way. For example, on the right-hand side, this section can be further divided into the upper and the bottom parts. Now, if there is further division like this on the right-hand side, the writing sequence will be left 1, upper right 2, and bottom right 3. Now let's have a look at the structure on the right-hand side. And here you can see there is another structure with the upper part and the bottom part. And the writing sequence of this structure of Chinese characters will be 1 for the upper part and 2 for the bottom part. And then further, this kind of structure can be further divided into further forms. So the first form is with the upper part, we can further divide it into 2 equal parts. The upper left, upper right, and the bottom. Now, if the character is within this structure, the writing sequence is 1 for upper left, 2 for upper right, and 3 for the bottom. Another variation is instead of having 2 sections as upper part and bottom part, we divide it further into 3 parts with the top part, middle part, and bottom part. Now, if you see this kind of structure of characters, you normally start with the upper part, the middle part, and then the bottom part. Now, let's have a look at the last structure. Now, this is a structure with a big one in the outside, and then it is enclosing a smaller square in the middle of it. Now, in the future, we will see the little square can be placed at different corner or positions of the bigger square. And today, we are learning the structure with the smaller square placed at the bottom, right in the middle of the bottom part of the bigger square. So the writing sequence is, we will write the enclosing part first. And then we go into the smaller square and complete the section in the middle here. So that is 1, E, and number 2. Okay, now let's have a look at the real characters. The first one is for the half enclosure characters with the smaller square being placed in the middle of the bottom. So the particular example from today's word list is jin, okay? So the half enclosure part is a ren being pie and a na. And then underneath here, we can put the rest of the structures within the smaller square part, being 横横竖点点横横横竖点点横. And next example underneath this picture, underneath this structure is 会. And you can see although these are 2 different characters, they both represent the same structure. With 会also having the 人 at the top, right? And also we write a 云, if you can still remember this little character, which means a cloud, right? And it should be written within the smaller square. 横横撇折点横横撇折点. Now let's move on to the left and right structure with an example. So one of the examples in today's work list is 现在的现. the now character. On the left-hand side, we've got a 王, okay? And then the writing sequence is 横横竖提. So 横横竖提. And on the right-hand side, we've got a 见,再见的见. Right, we put the right-hand side completely on the right-hand side of this left-right structure. So we go 竖横折撇竖弯钩竖横折撇竖弯钩 And then we can have a look at 说 as the structure of the further division based on the left and right structure. So apparently we know that we should start from the left-hand side structure. So I'm going to trace this character within the structure for you. So left-hand side is a yen radical, okay? And it only has got 2 strokes. We start with 点, Now because I'm writing with my mouse, the cursor, it's not as well as my own handwriting. All right, on the right-hand side, we've got 2 parts. Now, some people might say it can be divided into 3 parts. That is also okay. But we know definitely the writing sequence is from the top to the bottom. So the top one could be 点, and then there is a 口, and we follow the box rule, okay? So 竖横折. Now remember, this is 1 stroke. And then 横, a little bit trembling because of the mouse controlling. And the last 2 will be the 2 strokes at the bottom. Now make sure they need to be joined to the bottom of the 口. So 撇 and 竖弯钩. Now if they slightly go across the boundary, that's fine, as long as we can identify the structure of basically where each part is located within. Okay, so this is for sure. Now let's move on to the up and down structure. All right, and we have a look at the first variation with the example of 想, the want character. And here we can see there's a upper left, upper right, and a bottom part. And we can write each one at a time. So we know for this structure, we start with the upper left corner, and we follow that with the second one here at the upper right corner, and we write the bottom part thirdly. Okay, so we can look at each little part at a time. So the first one is a 木, which is a wood, and we can write in this way: 横竖撇点. It's done. And what about the upper right corner? It is a 木, but it with the same pronunciation, it means I. So the writing of it is 竖. And again, it applies the box rule. 横折, remember this is 1 stroke. All right, we place the 2 little horizontal strokes in the middle. 横 and 横. It's up to you if you would like to stop here or touch the far end. And also, we close the box at last. The last one is the 心, the heart radical at the bottom. Now, why do we need a heart? Because when you desire for something, when you want to have something, want to do something, it must be something real in your feeling, in your heart. Okay, so you need to have your heart to think about that. We start with the first drop of blood. Why is that? Because our heart basically is a pumping muscle, and it pumps in and out of blood. Right? There's blood drops coming in and going out of your heart muscle. So we start with the first drop of blood. I just put a quotation mark around this. It's really a dot, but we can imagine that is a drop of blood. And then we follow that with the muscle of the heart, because it's a pumping muscle, right? And there is also another 2 drops of blood. Now, remember the writing sequence of the Xin of the heart is blood, muscle, and blood and blood. And the last one is Yan, 语言的言. Now, if we follow this writing sequence or structure, knowing about where to start first and where to end, it is very straightforward. So we start with the top part with a 点 and a very long horizontal line. And in the middle, there is actually a 2 radical or character, right? It's R. So when you speak a language, it can't be a one-way process. It must be a talker, a speaker, and a listener. It must be at least a 2-way process. So that's why we've got a 2 in the middle, right? And also at the bottom, remember, you need your mouth to speak a language. And again, the mouth is not something new, right? We use the here, and also we apply the same box rule here. So we use the same writing sequence. 竖, 横折, 横. All right, so here is the teaching for this lesson's characters together with its structures. And I hope you can use the structures to reflect on which character can be matched into which type of structures. And then you practice these characters based on your understanding of the structures, because these structures can help you remember where to start and which little sections are within each section. In your textbook, there's also sections of learn the characters. The first one is 景. 景. And the second one is 水. 水. Now try to also write the characters according to the English hints as well as their pinyin. And also in this exercise, try to say the meaning of each radical. 会, 说, 现, 想, 雨, 路, 马, 美, 虎, 长, 树, 同, 诗, 角, 科. Have a self-assessment to see how many characters you can read and also how many of them that you can say the meaning. Of course, there will be more exercises that you can find from the workbook, so make sure you practice writing in the workbook. Okay, that's all for this lesson. 谢谢，再见。